It's back in its home in New Zealand, back in the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron here in Auckland. To have won the Cup 3 times in the multi-challenger era with the same team is pretty extraordinary. In fact, it's never been done before. But Emirates Team New Zealand is not just an impressive Cup team, but it's become a major sports technology company. You only have to look at how they've led the foiling era to see how impressive they are in this field. But down here in Auckland, there's one big question that's on everybody's minds. And that question is, will the 38th America's Cup take place here in Auckland, its current home? 48 hours after I arrived back in the UK, we knew the answer: no. A statement from Emirates Team New Zealand said that while plans for funding the hosting were based around 3 areas, local and central government and private funding, the New Zealand Central Government, Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment had decided not to back hosting the next America's Cup. It's a decision that's going to leave the Kiwi public frustrated, if not furious. And it's easy to see why. The second most successful America's Cup team in the history of the event has won the Cup 5 times. But the country has only hosted it 3 times, and it's only been able to invite an international audience to its home twice. As such, the country has not enjoyed the financial benefits of winning sailing's biggest crowd puller. In 2020, New Zealand was off limits for visitors during the global pandemic, but they still managed to put on a show. Just a few weeks ago, a Spanish report stated that the Cup had provided an economic benefit of over €1 billion to Barcelona. A report that should have encouraged those with the purse strings that it's an event worth investing in. But for many Kiwis, and in the context of today's news, it will just rub salt into the wounds. So it's fair to say that the public, who've seen some of their taxes going towards winning what they're told is the most prestigious trophy in sailing, are pretty hacked off. The trouble is that I suspect the chances of New Zealand hosting the event were pretty slim to start with. In broad terms, it costs about as much to host an America's Cup as it does to run a campaign. At least that's what we're told. And if that's the case, then you're looking at about 100 million sterling, euros, call it what you will, to actually just host the America's Cup. Well, Team New Zealand have been reasonably well funded, but they're not mega rich, that's for sure. And to find enough money to mount their campaigns over the last few years has been hard work. To double that money to then host the America's Cup has been really hard. And that hasn't changed. The odd thing is that there were warning signs last week with the announcement of the new ocean race stopover in Auckland in 2027, the same year that the Cup is due to happen. So if hosting one event was too expensive, 2 was surely going to be out of the question. Add to that the possibility of SailGP returning to the city of sails, and the financial pressure is clear to see. But even so, what makes it such a hot topic down under is that the development of the city and large chunks of the marine industry owe part of their successes to the Cup. But for this cycle, the deal is done. New Zealand will not host the next America's Cup. Back up top, there have been some contentious issues going on behind the scenes as well. The biggest is the plan to make a fundamental change to the way that the Cup is run by creating a central body to take on the management. Since the Cup began, the responsibility for each Cup cycle lies primarily with the Cup holder. Their relationship with the Challenger of Record is crucial. When they get on, we often have a great Cup. When they fall out, things get unpredictable and even more expensive. Such uncertainty doesn't go down well with sponsors and investors when you're looking to raise funds. Of course, you could also argue that it's worked for over 170 years. Nevertheless, earlier in the year there was a meeting among interested parties to see whether there was a way of creating this central Cup organisation. Few on the outside know what happened, but with the clock counting down towards the venue announcement deadline on the 20th of June, I'd be surprised if there's going to be a fundamental change to the way that the Cup is run, at least this time. But the topic also sounds like it might have been the trigger for the breakup between Ainsley and Radcliffe. One of them wasn't at the meeting and apparently wasn't very happy about it. That person now finds himself going public with his plans to mount a campaign for the 38th America's Cup with Ineos Britannia. Which is odd, because back in the summer in Barcelona, Jim Radcliffe was saying that he wanted to share the financial burden of the Cup rather than paying for it all. I might have misinterpreted what he meant, but I took that as a cooling of interest in mounting another campaign. And yet plans for Ineos Britannia to take part in the 38th Cup are continuing and could mean that the UK has 2 challenges for the next Cup. So whether teams are north or south of the equator, the Cup is already a contentious subject and we haven't even started the process yet. So where might the Cup go? At the moment, the chatter suggests the main contenders are Naples, Athens and Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. Naples would be a spectacular venue and has some previous experience of hosting sailing events, including hosting 2 stages of the America's Cup World Series in 2012 and 2013. Athens played host to the biggest event of them all, the Olympics, in 2004, and has the space and the infrastructure to take the Cup on. Along with some rumours of some decent funding, this could make it a serious contender, and the Cup could be just what the venue needs to draw sporting crowds back. While Jeddah has the money and a recent track record, it could be a contentious choice. But having been at the preliminary regatta in December 2023, I'm not surprised that it keeps being mentioned. But in reality, who knows? We've been here plenty of times before in the weird limbo land between Cup cycles.